what is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Battlefield Project Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Rhoda. This is the podcast for people who understand that life is a battle and only the strong will thrive. I start every podcast by saying, yes, you need to survive. That's first and foremost. But more than anything, I think we're all meant to thrive in this life. And it's up to us, each one of us, to make sure that that happens. And that's our story. Far too often, I believe people think that successful people, happy people have a red carpet laid out in front of them, and that's why they have it good. But that is not usually the case, if ever. Everybody has battles. Everybody has struggles. What I found, and all the guests that are coming on our show and sharing with you guys, is people who are happy and successful head those battles face on, and they fight their way through it. They conquer them, and they live better lives because they have the courage and the fortitude to kind of take down those battles and those challenges head on. So I'm joined by a friend of mine. I'm just getting to know him here personally before the call. I've been Facebook friends with him for a little while. I was connected through a really good friend of ours, Nick. Shout out to Nick for connecting us. But I'm super excited to have him on the show here, Alundas. Thank you for joining us, man. It's awesome to have you.
Thank you, brother. It's an immense honor because I see what you're doing.
Appreciate it.
I take care of the baby, while I work, and I see you doing the same thing. And I'm like, man, that's so damn empowering. Got the twins right there and you're reading. I was like, man, we got to connect.
Yeah.
We got to be able to help each other out.
Awesome, brother. So let me read a quick bio here for you. Let everybody know a little bit more about who you are. Alundas grew up being abused and watched alcoholism did to his parents. He had identity issues, could not function around people socially. He got kicked out of his house, began questioning all the limiting beliefs he had been conditioned to believe, which I think it's so many of our stories, man. We're all taught certain things, and at some point you just start questioning it. So good for you, man. He's questioned his existence because he lost 4 close friends and his grandfather, which crushed him. All the trauma that hurt him in the military came out in his marriage. And now, like a solid human being and a great man that he is, he uses his passion and inspiration to show others that you can find ways to win no matter what. And I mean, if I could think of a better person to have on my podcast and to be shared, man, you're like the epitome of it, man. So the floor is yours. I don't really chime in too much during these, episodes. This next segment, 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes is all you. I want to hear what challenges you've experienced in life, whether it's personal, professional, spiritual, whether it's when you're growing up or currently, or if it's multiple. And then what you did to kind of fight your way through those challenges and battles, and now the life that you're living because you had that courage and fortitude to face things head on, my friend.
Well, I appreciate you, brother. I know you read the bio, but I'll go more in detail on there. So
Perfect.
Parents had me 1921, smack in the middle of their party days. It was a lot of generational trauma that they didn't know that they had, that they're working through, so they're drinking, partying, girls coming in and out at a young age. Like my dad was teaching me how to be the player, how to do whatever, so
Yep.
I grew up thinking that. The difference is just at a young age, I really realized like I don't like certain things. I questioned everything, but certain things didn't make sense to me. Like, how are you going to keep complaining about something, but you can't do it for yourself? I was like 5 years old, just new things, yeah, pretty bad for me because one house was the party house. My mom, was taking care of me, both parents alcoholics, narcissists, so always pointing the finger at me. And then I had a racist stepdad in the mix. Good thing is I had the hustler dad that taught me how to be a hustler and that, but was abusive and could only talk to him about certain things. And then I had the stepdad on the side, really conservative dude, does what he has to do for his family, has these fucking crazy thoughts and rants sometimes, but meant well. So for me, it was really, battling, kind of shifting my personality between both sides. I didn't grow up with the black side of my family either. So it was very difficult for me because I go with the Mexicans, you don't speak Spanish, go with the black kids, you're not one of us, so it was very difficult for me on that spectrum, clicked with people, but it was always, finding that one thing. So got into high school, and then that's where I ran into more problems, was living with my dad at the time. There was no food in the house, so I had to start selling my own clothes or games, and really got smart at the school I was at, because I was at a rich school, predominantly white. So I was like, I know these kids have money and I don't, so I'm going to befriend them and I'm going to, whatever. So a lot of it was genuine, but I learned, about people and kind of having access to who you want to be around, the different lives and so forth. So it was one of those for me, again, questioning everything. My dad talking about going to church or that, but he drank, he's abusive. So I had a problem with God, and I'm just like, why am I going to go to church if that, why are we going to lie to people? You don't know what the hell you're talking about, son. You're the one who does it. I'm like, wait a minute. How are you gaslighting me to be me? On the other hand, moved back with my mom, my stepdad one day goes on a rant about how he hates Middle Eastern people and whatever, and then he comes to me, who do you hate? I'm like, I hate everybody. It's equality. And I was just like, I feel like if you want to talk shit, everybody can dish it out. Cause in his case, he wanted to say it. But when I said certain things, that wasn't it.
Yeah.
And I got a design on my hair, anything that was ghetto. So I would fire back and be like, okay, well, I'm the direct reflection of you. So whatever you're doing, saying, I'm a hoodlum, that's a reflection of you. No, it's not. But, so it was one of those things for me. Went into the Marine Corps to escape life because partying, drinking, my sophomore, junior year of high school, I started getting around bad crowds because moved back with my mom. All my friends from grade school were doing dumb shit, slanging. So
Yeah.
here goes me, the middleman, kind of like seeing people get high. And I'm like, hey, man, you want some hot Cheetos? Let me run the store for you because I want to get something too,
Yeah.
So get a couple bucks, get what I need, but really took care of myself, realized like this isn't where I want to be anymore. I wrestled, so it was always the driving force of like pushing me to the next level, cutting extreme weight, but just was tired of really like going to my friends' houses every day. When I was 16, I'd go home, do my chores, leave. But go to the Marine Corps while I'm on boot leave, have a traumatic event. My stepdad thought my mom was having an affair, pulled out a 45, shot within a centimeter of my wrestling coach's face. So it put me on a spiral from just all that negative thoughts, wanting revenge, drinking like crazy. Along that, one of my cousins got stabbed 9 times. Who he used to be strung out on meth, so he'd send people after me, and then had some friends die along the way. And it just really kept taking a toll. I'm drinking a gallon of whiskey. I broke up with the wife before we got married. I needed to handle my shit with my ex. Like all these things are going generational trauma. I turned 21. Me and my dad start fighting again because we can't think the same. And he thinks a little more hardcore. He's screaming all the time.
Yeah.
And he just comes out, you've had an easy life. You've never dealt with anything hard. And I'm like, man, do you not know me? Like
Yeah.
I've dealt with that, like socially being around people. Like I don't, I'm an introvert by heart, and I could talk to anybody. But if we don't click on that, like I don't. Kind of like, and that's what I battled at that time was like switching my life around, not drinking. And then somebody's talking about partying. And I'm like, hey, man, like that doesn't resonate with me, but then I don't want to talk to them anymore. So it was really breaking that down. But really started to go through these things. My grandfather died. I'm working at a mortgage brokerage. Pissed off when I got out the Marine Corps because I tore the cartilage in my right knee. My body wasn't the same. So I was just really going through it at that time because I felt like no one was getting me. And I got scared again because my father-in-law is the dad I always wish I had. So it's amazing. But at the same time, I started thinking to myself, like, man, if I lose this dude, I'm done. Like, what's going to happen when he's gone? I'm going to have nobody. And then it's just me again, going through it in my life. My mom, my dad, they come to me for advice. Everyone wants me to show up where I can't even show up for myself because I don't know what being a man is. So that's where I started doing the research. Week before my daughter's born, start the Winner's Paradigm podcast, challenging those beliefs, really doing that inner work, brother. And that's how we got connected with Nick. I got connected with him through Zach and just started doing breath work with him. And it was like, hey, we did a trade off and we start taking care of each other. And I'm like, man, like I didn't know all these things, up until that point now. I'm journaling. I consume cannabis and then journal to cry it out, feel these emotions because for years I suppressed them. I was the tough macho guy of what I thought a man was to be. And then that didn't lead me to good things. So really the past year of podcasting, like really changed my life because I had to hone into all these things. And it was just like realizing the same things, learning about people and business, the inner projections that we have of ourselves or why we get upset about something is like, man, that's us. We don't get upset at people and be like, you do this as entrepreneur. We do that because that's what we went through. You know what I mean? So it was one of those things for me where I finally was able to tailor it down, take care of my body, and then just kind of think about, hey, how do I show up for myself before I show up for anybody else? I know you're an early riser. I got up at 3 today, hit the gym, how to make sure I was good, had a meditation session, like set myself up for success early on so I can show up for the family, run the business, take care of the baby, have 2 podcasts. Like you got to be able to channel that. And that's what I did. It's really worked on myself, started the podcast, shared the story because for years, suppressed that emotion, didn't want to talk about it. My family doesn't get it because my parents paint the picture perfect thing. And then it was me getting the good grades. So when I talk about me doing dumb shit or whatever, everybody's like, what? Because I kept it low key and I was smart with what I was doing. Where it was just like I needed to be able to let people know, hey man, like this is how it feels. You could either go to somebody who's putting the results in, or in other cases, like they're not doing it, and you can clearly see that. But it takes somebody to really take that time to understand you, and that's where I was like, man, I'm going to share my story. I'm going to make an impact because this is the stuff that held me back from jumping to the next level.
Dude, you mentioned podcast. When the first podcast that you heard, what was the name of it, and how did you become aware of that podcast? Because it sounds to me like that was kind of like a catalyst moment for you. That was kind of like your entryway into a different path.
So honestly, I hated podcasts.
Yeah,
I hated podcasts. What's funny is what brought me to it was I was going to join Amway, and I just didn't like it because they kept this is the level of success. So they give me a book. I'm
yeah,
going to read the book. I read the book in like a day. First book I ever read. It's cool. You
yeah,
know, talking about a consumer store, but I just didn't like the way they're doing the process. So within that time frame, I seen 50 Cent's book, Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter. That's my favorite rapper of all time.
yeah,
I just felt it when I was a little kid. My dad was always like, I'm a hustler. I was like, that's me, you know?
yeah,
So really started diving into it. He's talking about the street level stuff to corporate to when his first album was coming out. He took the computer, trashed an office, they made a publicity thing, but he talks about his side of it being like, yeah, that was strategic. We
yeah,
did that so they can paint this, and it was learning those things for myself where I was like, man, I learned so much shit, around people. Is I learned how to be able to know my audience, how to speak to them. I can go in any single room and be able to talk to people, whether how I'm dressed or my tattoos, like it doesn't
yep,
matter. You know what I mean?
yep,
Once I get that floor, it's on. So that's where it started for me. Then one of the sailors that was stationed with me, she was like, hey, look up Andy Frisella. So Andy
yep,
brought me to Zach. Zach is the one where I honed into, joined his mastermind group, and then eventually started a business with him. But it was crazy. It's like just a simple book that connected with me.
yeah,
Where I just read 50 Cent's book because I was like, man, I love 50 Cent. And it was something where I was like, man, that connected, started the next thing that I'm over here listening in a podcast.
yeah,
Then I stopped listening to people because when I'm starting, they're like, that's stupid. Everybody's starting a podcast. Okay. So I just went on, did my own thing because that's where my heart was. I was like, I finally get to talk to people where you get these answers. You come with problems, they listen to you. You find people like yourself and Nick, where you guys are like,
yeah,
man, how can I provide value to you? How can I help you? And you're like, wait a minute, I've never dealt with anybody in my life that are genuinely there for helping people
yeah.
versus, wanting an exchange. There's some catch to it.
Yeah, they're like, just wait for that moment to like come in and be like, now you got to help me. You're on the hook for help. Like, nah, man, like not my kind of people at all. Dude, yeah, man, that's the experience that I had, and that's I feel like the experience a lot of people have in terms of one thing leads to another, and it like whether that's by like deliberate choice, you're like, you wake up one day, you're like, okay, I'm gonna change my life today, and I'm gonna start with a book, like or you wake up and someone hands you a book and you had no expectation of it, you weren't planning on it, you read that book and you're like, oh shit, like okay, like I read a book in 2001. I'm not gonna mention it because it's a crazy book, but it opened up my world to like every possible, like I'm very much like you, man. When I grew up, I questioned everything. Like we went, born and raised Catholic, went to church. I questioned like, why do we have to stand and sit and repeat back and forth? Why do you have to dress up one Sunday and like God's mad at me because I didn't dress up properly? Like that makes absolutely no sense from a young age. And then, so I was brought up in a very good home, like very good values and faith and all the above, but just some stuff never made sense to me. And then I read this book in 2001. So I would have been like early 20s or even 18 or 19, and it was just like, oh my god, like okay, like my questions are legitimate, like there is stuff going on outside of what I'm being taught on a daily basis that I should be questioning, and there are weird things happening, and like so. And then from there, like the awareness opens up, and then you start reading other books, and then you start talking to people who also read the book and vibe with it, and then they're connecting you, and it's just like this slow snowball effect that I think a lot of people expect like change to happen like this, and it's like it very rarely happens like this. Like it's usually a long fought hard journey that you have to continuously make decisions to keep going in that direction. Like you could have read that book and then gone right back to the way you were, been like, ah, fuck it, like cool, but no.
Absolutely.
Or like listen to one podcast and be like, ah, fuck it, or like been on that journey and have some like one person be like, oh, podcasts are stupid, you're an idiot, like you're a loser, and you'd be like, ah, fuck yeah, I am, like and right back down to the old path. So I think it takes that catalyst, but then the person has to have so much courage and strength to follow that path to see where it's going to lead, because you never know where it's going to lead. Like you can expect success, you can expect greatness, but you're not guaranteed either one of those. So it's a hard choice. But for us, guys like us, gals like who are listening, it's the only choice, because without
Yeah.
that, like, what do you have? Go back to the way it was when you know you don't want that? Like, no, thank you.
My man, just spitting fire right there, and 100% agree, brother. For me, first I would say, I was very emotional. Now it's five friends that died. So it was just getting to the point where like these dudes died young,
Yeah,
19, 21, 18. And I'm like, man, they don't have their whole life to live anymore. My grandfather was like, I was on deployment. He was texting me about the Dodgers in the World Series. That was the year they lost the Astros.
yeah,
So now it's funny because I watched like one game, but it was hard to catch in the middle of the night.
yeah,
So it was just funny to me, like replaying these things. I mean, like my people aren't here, so that was it. So that was the
yeah,
driving factor. Then it went to just being a dad, and I was terrified to have a son because I was like, I'm going to be yelling at him. My dad was tough as nails with me. I'm glad, because it molded
yeah,
me into me. But honestly, I don't believe in yelling anymore. Why? It's
yeah,
ineffective. It's good for some people. For me, it is because you can scream at me and I'm like, oh, yeah, let's go get some ice cream. I'll make jokes.
yeah,
Like, I don't
yeah,
care.
yep,
But it goes down to it is like, hey, you can be a better leader yourself. So that's what I loved was figuring out as a dad, like, how do I be the best I can be? And then baby comes along and I'm like, you know what? All that I thought I had is going away. Like, it's just focusing on being good, doing the right thing.
yep,
For once, I started thinking differently on things, and it was kind of crazy. It's like usually I'd get upset, but it's just like, you know what? I see it for what it is. I totally understand situations and having that self awareness to where we're like, okay, this is bigger picture. Uh,
yeah,
not being, and like I said, I was really reactive. So it was something that I continually work at even today. I
yeah.
have to because
Oh yeah,
entrepreneurs, they pace one thing or they're like, oh, talking about, oh, you don't need a workout. Like, man, I don't care who you are. I won't do business with you. I won't feed into whatever content, if you're lying about it or you're talking about a big game and you're like, oh yeah, so I tried to help a client out one time and he was just like, I'm gonna do better than you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, whatever, and he goes on to say that he doesn't show up for himself, he doesn't work out, and it's
yeah,
because of the business. So it's like, hey man, that's stuff you need to figure out. Like if you can't show up for yourself, how you
yep,
can be better for your family. You're talking about a bad marriage right now. Bro, you can't even put it in work in yourself. Like, what makes your spouse think that you're doing anything to try?
yeah,
And he got upset at me and I was like, it's not that I'm trying to get upset. I'm helping him because, bro, I've been there. I've
yeah,
been there where you're like pushing this. I hurt my knee, lied to myself for a year that I can't squat, I can't do this versus, taking time to learn, putting knee sleeves on,
yep,
getting blood into that area, stretching. Like I still can't squat fully, but
yeah,
I'm working through there. I'm doing more things, and it
yeah,
was teaching that level where people don't understand that sometimes maybe their excuses there and they think it's real, but it's like, hey man, sometimes it is real excuses, but the majority of the time it's our beliefs.
yeah. And it's so much easier to be like, it's not as easy for me. Like you just said, man, you got to stretch, you got to get blood flow circulation. You probably started at like, 130 degrees. Now you get to 120 and 110, and eventually maybe you get to 90, maybe you don't. But like, it's that daily stuff where it's like, yeah, we all have the ability to make excuses, man. Like, just today, literally, like our oldest had a ear ache for the last 2 days and a fever for 4 days. And this morning, my wife's like, "Can you take her to the doctor?" I wasn't planning on an hour and a half of like going to the little like not emergency room, but like the walk-in clinic. And like, so I'm up at like 4, so I can read, meditate, get some work done. Got my workout in all before I took her to the doctor because I was like, once I do that, I've got 3 podcasts this afternoon. I'm going to 4. Like, then I got to get a second. Like, there's so many things. It'd been so easy to be like, I can't get my second workout in today or whatever it is. Cause like, oh, I had to spend an hour and a half at the doctor, which I wasn't planning for. Like, or you're just like, okay, like, thanks, universe. Challenge accepted. I'll move some stuff around. I'll be a little bit more efficient with my time. I might go to bed a little bit later, whatever the fuck it takes. But like, it's going to happen because I want it to happen. Whereas other people, and you can't teach that to people. That's one thing I've learned, and it was probably like the guy that you were talking to, and I don't want to say like I've given up on that because that's not the proper way to phrase it, but I've stopped trying to force people to be and do something they're not ready to be and do. And that's hard for me and probably for you too, because you see potential in everybody and you see the rewards and like the fruits of your labor because you went through it and you're willing to continue to go through it, and so it's possible, and you want to like take that gift that you have bottled in you and just be like, just take it. Like, and I'm not asking you to do anything super crazy. I'm asking you to do like little things on a daily basis that over time will like change your life. And some people are ready for it and others aren't. And then you just kind of like, I always say, like, you got to protect your own energy. Like, you can't pour and pour and pour and pour into someone, that is just like doors are closed because you're going to deplete your own stuff, and neither one of you are going to win at that point.
Absolutely, brother. And I think, it goes down to the thing, we got to lead the want to be we got to lead the
Yep.
way we want to be led. And it goes into those guys. Like, yeah, it's not, and I used to get so frustrated, but when I was working on the inner projections and working
Yeah.
with Nick, one thing we popped up is he's like, is there a time where you told your mentors some not nice things? I said, yeah, one of my best friend that was when I was in the Marine Corps, he was an E6 in the Navy. So dude's like 10 years older than me, feels like the brother I never had. And he gave me a leadership video or DVD CD, put it in my car, right?
Yep.
Listen to this. I was like, nah, bro, go fuck yourself. I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
And a year later, I listened to it. Man, this shit actually works.
Yeah.
So
Like, this is
that's where like the
legit.
podcast thing came in. Was I was just like, I'm not doing that. People say it's dumb. I
Yeah.
don't listen to Joe Rogan, and it was one of those to where it was just like, man, you put the work in, or maybe at a different point in your life. So that's
Yeah.
where it became more paramount to me. And also recently, like I said, I had a really problem connecting with people. I feel like we either click or don't. I'm
Yeah.
highly motivated. So I learned that, I'm in dad's group, and I jumped on a call one day, and I'm just like amped up, wired. And the guy's like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I wake up at 3 a.m. and I do this, da, 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 and
Yeah.
getting scared. And he's like, it sounds like you're just highly motivated. Yeah, man. I was thinking about making a podcast. Bro, if you want to do a podcast, you just got to do it. You got to be passionate about it. You got to bring that fire. And he's
Yeah.
just, like getting scared on it
Yep.
because he's not there on his journey. And it was
Yeah.
just learning that for me. It was not connecting with the wife's family versus now being present. My sister-in-law one day started opening up to me when it was just me and her. The weirdest shit ever, just because she's real bubbly, happy all the
Yeah.
time. Really crazy, like when you don't hear somebody ever talk to you like that.
Yeah.
And then they're just like, hey, I feel comfortable to talk to you. And I was just like, I've never won. She's like, well, you're posting good things, you're doing work on yourself, like
That's
you're
it.
very understanding. And I was just like, and I told my wife that like I was amazed that happened because I never thought that we would have that relationship. I never thought we would have those conversations.
Yeah.
I've been fucked up and said that we haven't had any intellectual conversations, and that was the day that like changed everything for me. To where I was like, it's all about mindset and how we do it, and if we can show up, for ourselves, show up for everybody, be positive, like then they're gonna come to you. That was awesome for
Yeah.
me because I didn't expect those things, nor did I think that was going to happen, but it
Yeah.
definitely changed my outlook on like being present. Cause I used to just spend hours, just being nervous, having anxiety being there. I don't drink anymore cause I used to drink that gallon of whiskey. So,
Yeah.
very few select times, I will. And it was one of those to where it's like, it's very difficult to get around. Cause then you're a square all of a sudden, people don't like
Yeah.
you. I'm like,
Got it,
I don't
man.
want to
Yep.
be there.
Yeah. Dude, earlier when you were telling your story, you said, at one point you started like sharing your story, and that was like odd for you to do, but you did it because you felt like the need to do it. I think that moment and the journey you've been on since then is what led, it was your sister-in-law to have that level of trust with you, because like when leading by example, like you're showing the world that it's healthy and good and also courageous to share your story and to put it all out there. And then people see that, and if they feel safe, they feel like they can trust you, they feel like you would listen, like all the good qualities that someone is looking for to share like that kind of stuff with, they're going to give that to you because you're giving that to the world. And I think that like that testament in and of itself, man, was like a sign from the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, that like, okay, I'm on the right path, because like I'm now living in such a alignment with my own self and my own being that people sense that and gather that. So it's not even you like sitting down with her and be like, hey, if you want to talk, I'm here to listen. Like it's just like you're sitting there, she feels that presence, she feels that energy, and is like called to open up and share with you, man. That's huge, because it's an honor to have people pour into you like that and to trust you on that level, because as you said, she's usually super bubbly. So like 99% of the world would probably be like, she has everything going for her. She doesn't, like nothing phases her. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, a lot of things do, but I'm just not comfortable sharing it with most people. But you got that level of comfort because of the work that you do.
Yeah, brother. And I love you for saying that, brother. Appreciate you. So originally, the way it was when I was a kid, I used to always get in trouble for oversharing. So I thought it was just ADHD.
Mhm.
I also did like 14 years in fucking therapy. So that was another thing because again, just helped me suppress my emotions back then. So maybe because I was younger, I just didn't want to share things or
Yeah.
whatever maybe. But uh when I was younger, I would always overshare and I would always get in trouble with my parents. Why did you say this? Why did you say that? I moved out of my mom's house. I called her a bad mom one day. The kid I told to report it back to his mom, she called my mom. My mom's like, did you say this? Yes. Why? Because I felt like she was choosing my stepdad over me and I was
Hmm.
pissed, you know? So
Yeah.
I was hurt, you know, I felt abandoned. So it was one of those things where I was always oversharing and telling people. And then again, I fixate on random things. So if I'm passionate about something, oh yeah, da da da, like sports. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
talking about sports, and I do workouts and da 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 da, and like that's all I want to do is get better at that.
Yeah.
And people's moms would be like, oh, like how was this? Or like, hey, I picked you up. I heard your dad was yelling. Yeah, he's like that. You know, did your dad ever hit
Yeah.
you? Yeah, man, whatever. And
Move
I
on.
just go
Yeah.
on with life, you know. So my parents would always be pissed at me for that. So when I started the podcast, it was that. But now worse conditions because now they're getting other people to listen to my podcast and report back to them. And that's where I was just like, man, I don't care anymore. Like, what are you
Yeah.
going to do? Keep preventing me from doing that? Like, the truth's going to come out 6.5 years later. My mom's still living at my grandmother's house,
Yeah.
not doing anything to show for. You know, I gave her thousands of dollars, didn't help herself. My dad's, you know, after I have a daughter, he has another daughter. And he's over here trying to tell me to live my life. And I'm like, man, looking at him and I'm like, you're not the perfect picture of what a father should be. So
Yeah.
don't be telling me, you know, what I'm doing if he can't do simple things. You know, these people that I deal with in my life, my family, there is no boundaries. They cross every single boundary. They go crazy, you know, and it was years feeling frustrated, being
Yeah.
pissed, you know, having that progress. And then even like when I first started working with Nick, I had progress, brother. I didn't yell for months and then just snapped on my mom when it was the day that I needed to, you know, put the boundaries, my foot down and just
Yeah.
snap. It was like I was upset, started crying after because I worked my ass off to not
Yep.
get in that position. That was where I fell too as a man. I never showed my mom. I never talked to my mom negatively in front of my wife. And that was where
Hmm.
finally my wife heard it. Oh, you're sticking up for me. And it was like, no, I've always done that. I just don't say it openly around people or
Yeah.
because that's not how I wanted my wife to view me treating my mom. You know, I wanted my wife to be like,
Absolutely, man.
okay, you know, you treat a woman with respect. But in my case, I was just like, hey, you know, my mom's in a funk. I don't know what it is. You know, like I don't know if I know that lady anymore by the way she acts. And it was
Yeah.
something that I was going through, but I had to work on me, you know, process that information, which one day I didn't. And Nick told me that. He was just like, how would you feel, you know, if you can feel the void in your heart that's there from your dad? And I go, I don't feel anything. I feel it from my mom, though. And it just set me
Hmm.
down another path, brother, where
Yeah.
more work's coming out in learning about myself that, like, man, I suppressed these things I didn't even know.
Yeah. Dude, I wrap up here in a couple minutes, but I want to commend you, or I don't know if the right word is, man, but like you mentioned generational trauma in the beginning of your story, and you're like, you always say, like, you got to break it. Someone's got to break it. If not, it's one generation to the next, to the next. And you've got, you know, 7 generations of like traumatized human beings that they're contributing to the world. Like, you know, we can't discredit your parents' contribution to the world in some form or other. Like, it could be a lot of negativity, but there's some positivity that is amidst all that. But regardless of that, trauma is trauma, and you want to end that. And you're like, you're nipping in the bud, dude. And that's not easy. I can't imagine. Like, I had an easy upbringing compared to what you expressed and explained. So like, I have to do my own work and like I'm on my own journey, but like I don't have to fight those forces. You're fighting a lot of forces. So to be in a position that you're at, that you're like, okay, like shouldered it all, fought my way through it all. I'm not putting that on my kids. Like you're like, you're taking it, you're processing it, and you're like putting it out into the universe and like dissipating it so it doesn't get passed on to the next generation. I wish every human being was like you, because that
It's
the world would be a
tough,
totally
brother.
different place, man. No, I know. Yeah, but that's why,
Yeah.
like, I hope you can like hear my voice. Like, it's so commendable, because without people like you, you know, times tens of millions of other yous in the world doesn't progress. Like, humanity does not progress. We just stay at the same vibration for all of time. And what a sad picture that would be of the world, you know, 100 years from now, if it was just like, yeah, we're all in a funk. We all berate each other. We all yell at each other. We all suppress our emotions. We all like, that's just the way humanity is. Like, someone, and you're the like example here, is like, no, not anymore. Like, there's a brighter future out there. And if I can contribute to that, like, I don't know your kids and I don't know your wife, but I can, like, with some pretty extreme confidence say they're going to grow up and be superstars. And then if they have kids, whether or not, who cares if they do or don't, but if they did, they're going to raise like a superstar times two because you poured into them. They got all the good stuff. They're going to take all that and pour that into their kid. Like you're starting a whole new ripple effect of positivity into the universe. And I think the world owes people like, not owes because it's a dumb word, but like the world owes people like you like all the gratitude and all the congratulations, because without it, I don't know what the future holds. It's people like you that give me hope that the future's a bright, bright fucking place to live in.
I appreciate you, brother. And I'm gonna start first with humility. You know, it starts with me. So my parents had a lot of people in and out, and then I started doing the same thing, hooking up with girls and just not doing me. And then like, you know what? I dealt with the not feeling like I was enough. My dad's a player. He gets the hottest tens, you know,
Yeah.
all these things. You know, I'm like, oh yeah. But for
Yeah.
me, it's getting that up. Like people label me, you're not this, you're not that. You know, if they didn't know me, yeah, I can pull it. But it was something to where it was like I didn't feel good enough. And then when I started to feel confident about myself, start working out, you know, doing it, got the tattoos from my friends that died, you know, and really just loving myself. That's where like it started to click. But it started with that humility. You know, when me and that
Yeah.
wife broke up, like I said, and I needed to end it with my ex. My ex, she was just toxic, you know, getting me to drink. It was sex. And it was just looking at it and it was just like, man, you know, this isn't it for me. Like, what am I going
Yeah.
to do? You know, what happens if I have a kid with her, bring it into the world? Her family was gangsters. So it was funny is I got away from home to be away from that shit. And then I'm back into it.
Yeah. Yep.
So it was, you know, do I really want to be living this way? And that's where, you know, me and the wife got back together because we had a miscarriage. And I just took that humility. Hey man, I fucked up, you know.
Yeah.
And it was something to where it's like I've known her since fifth grade. So we got married quick. And it was because I made that decision. Like, I'm gonna take care of her. This is what we're gonna do.
Yep.
I'm no longer gonna be living this life. I'm no longer gonna be doing the shit that my parents did. And then, oh well, that's what I seen, you know. So when I turned
Yeah.
21, I was married, and that's when my dad was talking about it. Like when I was younger, I seen my uncles have two girls, and I'm like, hey man, you know, you went
Cool.
through things differently.
Yeah.
I seen you do the same shit. I
Yeah.
seen just as bad as what he had, but it was in a different way. And
Yeah.
that's what blew me away was like everything I got bits and pieces from the whole family. But when my dad finally started telling me the shit that hit him, I was like, man, you did that to me in another form. So for
Yeah.
me not to take that on to my kids, like is amazing because then I don't have
Yeah.
to put some of the things, you know,
Yeah.
having to unpack it. And that's really my goal now, you know, is to share it because it starts with the humility. You know, I've been a bad husband, brother, whatever we want to say, you know, so
Yep.
you got to put that work in. You got to be able to say, yeah, you know, we can get better no matter what it is.
Yeah. Like your bio said, dude. I mean, exactly what you said at the end there. Show others that you can find ways to win no matter what. Like that's it. Yeah, man. Yeah, I love you, dude. Like I appreciate you. I think you're an incredible human being. Like my last 2 minute spiel about like how impressive you are is right from the bottom of my heart too, because I admire people who've been through a real struggle. Like, everybody's got a struggle, everybody's got a battle, but like to deal with what you had to deal with for such a long time, and then to be like, here, draw your line in the sand and be like, no, I'm going to do the work. I'm going to look at the man in the mirror. I'm going to change because I'm going to unpack it. I'm going to figure this out because I'm not passing it on. I like, if you accomplish nothing else in this world, which I know will not be the case, like you'll do big things, that in and of itself, like you served in my opinion, like the greatest purpose you can serve on this earth, which is raising another human being and giving them what you didn't get, and just taking all the negativity, blocking it from them, and giving them like full force positivity to run into the future and create the life that they want to create. So I admire you, man.
I admire you as well, brother. And honestly, like I said the other day when you got surgery, brother, I was like, honestly, seeing you grinding like that and still showing up for the family makes me work even harder
Yeah.
because you see the people that you look up to and that you're like, man, this dude puts in work every single day. So I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
That was something that motivated me and inspired me as well, brother, where I was like, I can do better. And I'm so glad we connected because me and you know, got a lot going on, but we're still present in the moment. And that's what I
Yeah.
wanted to do, you know, is have that conversation with you so we can just share that with people because
Yeah.
both of us got a lot, but hey, you know, it's different when people don't understand versus like when you get that person and you're like, hey brother, this, and they're laughing because they're like,
Yeah.
man, I've dealt with that so many times, or
Yeah.
you
Bennett.
know, yeah.
Cool, brother. Well, you're one of those people I'm like, everybody, that watches this should like find you on social media and connect with you and like, eat your content, absorb your content because it's so inspiring. Where can people find you online?
Yes, sir. So the easiest way to find me, Alundas_Havens. That's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. And then if you want to go to my podcast, just go to the Winner's Paradigm. That'll link you into my other podcast, but we'll make it as easy as possible.
Beautiful, man. Awesome, dude. Well, thank you. If you're watching this, thank you for watching it. If you got any value from it, which if you're watching this for the last 35 minutes and you're actually listening, you absolutely got value out of it. So, comment on it. More than anything, share it with somebody that you think like, hey, his message resonates with me, or hey, I know somebody that this message might resonate with and could help them fight through some of the battles that they're facing or potentially facing. That's what this is all about. I just really want to spread a ripple effect of positivity out there into the universe. So if this episode helps us achieve that, like I said to you, man, purpose served, mission served. So I keep saying to you, I appreciate you, man. I'm honored to be considered a friend of yours on the journey with you. Keep doing what you're doing, man.
I appreciate you as well, brother, and I honor you as well.
Thank you, man. All right, everybody. We'll catch you next time. I'll see you on the battlefield.